magic and brilliance comes out, because I think you access a higher power when you go confidently and boldly into what you're doing.
What does it look like when a woman doesn't follow the world's checklist, but follows the quiet voice inside her instead? You get Maria Clayton. From the outside, her current life might look simple, but look closer and you'll find music, mastery, purpose, grit, sacrifice, and a kind of soul-deep joy that the world just can't manufacture. Maria is a professional violinist, and she was, before her marriage, living her dream. Then she pivoted and championed her husband's dream of starting a school. And now they've woven their dreams together and built something even bigger than either of them could have imagined alone. And that's what happens when you follow God's path. It doesn't shrink your dreams. It expands them until they fit the full capacity of your soul. Maria is one of the rare ones. She listens, she sacrifices, she creates beauty, not because the world tells her to, but because she knows what it means to live with purpose. In this episode, we talk about calling, motherhood, hard seasons, identity shifts, and what it means to build something lasting with God at the center. This episode will remind you that the good life isn't out there. It's right here, if you're willing to lean in. Maria, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
This is so fun. I'm so excited you're on. When we were planning and talking about this episode, I was like, let's just pretend it's one of our runs, because we can run for an hour together and still by the end, I feel like we get to your house and I'm like, I didn't even cover a fraction of the things that I wanted to cover today. So we're just out on a run having our little conversation here, and I'm the luckiest to get to highlight your beautiful and incredible story. So it's going to be so fun.
I love it. I just love all the women you've had on the podcast, and I've learned so much from you. So I'm excited to be here.
So let's start out. Just tell us a little bit about yourself for those who don't know you in this community.
I'm a mom. We have 3 children and 1 angel baby in heaven, little boy. And my husband and I started a school here in Provo, Utah, and I am a professional violinist.
So good. I said this to you before, but I feel like Maria is like the quintessential person I want to have on this podcast and who I want to inspire those listening in, because I feel like you're the epitome of a woman who doesn't listen to the pressure of the world, but really charts your own path and says, this is what I want to go after. This is who I am. I'm okay to say no to the things that aren't most important in my life. And so I love that we're going to dig into your story and where your story took those pivots and the changes in the road, because I know each one of those forks in the road has taken so much faith and courage to do maybe what the world sometimes really approved of and sometimes didn't. And I'm so excited to get into it. Let's start by talking about something that started when you were young, and that's your journey as a violinist. And I love thinking, for women listening in, some may have children and be thinking of this through the lens of like, wow, how do I raise a child who could have this level of mastery and proficiency? Or also the woman listening in saying, I have something I want to tackle myself. Like, tell us a little bit about that journey.
Sure. Yeah. So my mom was standing in the grocery line one day when I was about 5 years old, and she met my violin teacher. She met my violin teacher to be by just talking to the woman behind her in the line. And her name was Stephanie Price. She was just full of joy and was a Suzuki guru. And she helped create this like really ideal environment for me to learn violin as a young child. I always tell people who are interested in pursuing an instrument that it takes an environment of consistency in the home, like having music all around you, and joy. There has to be joy plus rigor. And so that started at a really young age. She eventually moved, and I started studying with a woman that had recently immigrated from Japan, who had studied with Dr. Suzuki himself. And she was so wonderful. Her name was Yuko Honda. And to her, everything was about tone. And she used lots of analogies. So she talked to me about how tone can be like a water spider that's just like on the top of the water skidding along, or it can be like a big tuna fish that's like very far into the water. And every lesson we started with a tonalization where we would play this certain set of notes and try to deepen my tone. And I just feel so grateful for that gift that she gave me.
So beautiful. And a teacher who can translate music or sports or something into something you feel more deeply or that goes more deeply, like the tuna, that's such a gift, such a huge gift. Was practicing and the rigor that you talked about and the joy something that you feel like came intrinsically from yourself, that came because of those teachers, became from the environment your mom created? Because I'm thinking takeaways. How do we create that? Because a lot of people would think about violin practicing or music or sports and be like, joy doesn't come with rigor often. How do you create that
Yeah.
environment?
I mean, I think it's definitely a balance. Like practicing in my home was non-negotiable. And so it wasn't really something that we thought about because somehow my mom was able to like instate that as just something that we did before we played or went out with friends. Um, but I think anytime you're around something really great, like greatness, you feel it deep inside. And then once you're able to develop the skill set and can kind of be part of that greatness and like tap into it, then you can feel it even more deeply. I remember a lot of performances when I was growing up where I felt just really the spirit moving inside of me. Like, you can feel such edifying things through art and through music, and to be part of that was really inspiring to me.
Did your mom set up or your dad set up those concerts for you? Or did you ask to go to them?
I mean, they were mainly concerts that I played in through like my violin studios.
Okay.
Although so one experience that comes to mind is I saw one of my friends play in a concerto competition. Well, she won a concerto competition and performed as a soloist with orchestra. And I was so moved by that. I was probably about 10 years old that I decided that I wanted to do that. And so the next year, and my teacher helped prepare me, I learned a Mozart concerto and I ended up winning the competition. And my teacher went and found me $150,000 violin to borrow for this performance because she wanted the tone just to speak to the very back of the audience. And it was really an amazing formative experience. Although along the way, I think just all of the rigor of that kind of, I felt like the zeal kind of left me. And I was 11 years old at that time. I decided I wanted to quit the violin.
Oh, wow.
And I was determined. My mom had suggested all sorts of alternatives to kind of keep me in music. But it was when my two oldest brothers, Tom and Dave, said that they would each give me $100 if I would keep playing until the end of high school, which was in about 6 years from then. And to me, that felt like a lot of money back then, about 30 years ago. But more than that, it meant so much to me that they cared. I felt flattered that they cared and that they believed in me. And so I agreed that I would keep playing. My mom switched studios or had me, found me a new teacher. And unbeknownst to me, this was one of the most like prominent studios in Seattle. It was run by Kent and Jan Coleman. And they had all of the, young prodigy violinists in their studio. And I showed up to the first recital just thinking it would go great. And there were so many younger kids playing more advanced pieces than me that I just was kind of embarrassed. And I kind of sat in that discomfort for about 2 years where I just kept doing my thing, practicing like about 45 minutes a day, just what was prescribed for me until my freshman year of high school. I decided to do a little experiment. I thought, now, what if I practice for an hour and a half? Maybe I'll be more prepared for this next recital and won't be embarrassed. And the rest is kind of history after that. I just like skyrocketed my progress. And that was so motivating for me. And I became kind of obsessed with everything about classical music and violin. I practiced as much as I possibly could. I would come home from school and just start practicing, sometimes up to 5 hours a day.
Wow.
My social life definitely suffered because of it. But yeah, when I got to high school, there was one spring that I played 4 different concertos with 4 different symphonies, wearing 4 different dresses. And I was just going through the repertoire so fast. It's still kind of amazing to me looking back how much you can learn in that age and stage of life.
Wow. So many nuggets in your story that are so applicable as we think about what brings greatness, what creates greatness, what is the environment for greatness to flourish in. And I'm sure those of you listening are pulling out all these takeaways, and some of it is a little bit of just the coincidences that God puts in our life. Like your mom, nobody else in your family, none of your brothers played violin, I'm assuming. She meets this teacher, she's talking in the grocery store line, and it just kind of set off an experience. And sometimes with my own kids, I think, man, they each are so unique. You know, my kids, they're all so
Mm-hmm.
different. And I hope I don't miss something. I hope I don't miss their opportunity for their violin experience, and for their moments of greatness. And I'm trying to be more trusting that if there's something there, God will put it in my path. And I just need to be friendly and open and talk to people and trust. And she had a lot of other kids. It wasn't like you were her only child. She had all these other
Mm-hmm.
boys that she was raising, your parents were raising. And then thinking of that network of support around you, I think is also so beautiful that even your brothers. I heard a really interesting statistic that actually from a woman I'm going to have on in a couple of weeks who talked about the real key for children's growth is how many great adults they have in their life. And the real turning point is 5, which I think about, man, the children who don't have at least 5 good adults they trust and are good role models versus the children who do, and how lucky I feel like I have way more than 5 and my kids do as well. But thinking about even your older siblings as like these older examples and all those teachers and then that intrinsic love coming at different stages, sometimes before you were talented or not talented, before you had worked through it, and then sometimes after the rigor, being inspired even more. And such a beautiful journey with ebbs and flows, of course. And so where did that take you after you get to high school? You're just cruising through the repertoire, you're putting in all the time. Where did you go from there?
I ended up going to Rice University for my undergrad.
And put that into context for people who aren't musicians, because
Okay, it
I know that this is very prestigious to get into Rice and to do violin there.
it's kind of considered the Juilliard of the South, although it's at a major like academic university. So I think when I got in, it was something like 90% of the students there were valedictorians at their high school. It was a very small school, like about 5,000 undergrads. Um, but one of the benefits of going there was that I was able to get like a bachelor's degree. I was looking at a lot of other conservatories, but I'm really grateful that I went there. It was just a pinnacle life experience to be in the music school there. I remember the first orchestra rehearsal I went to, I was definitely not prepared because when we sat down and started the first note, I realized everybody knew all of the music. And it was like the most amazing thing I'd ever been part of, just hearing. It just sounded like I was in a professional orchestra. And those 4 years really, really crafted like a lot of things for my life. I felt like I kind of started to plateau there. Um, just because of probably the inner game, like the mental part of it, I started doubting myself a lot. Um, and I feel like that's come full circle actually a lot recently, which is
Mm.
interesting because life has so many like times and seasons, especially with like work as a mother. And um, anyway, so I
Tell
went.
us about that. Do you mind?
Okay,
How's it
yeah.
come full circle? We could leave that cliffhanger for later, but I want to hear how that's come from. Yeah, what that's been.
I felt like I lost some of the fearlessness, and you need that kind of like confidence and fearlessness to perform. And when you perform, magic and brilliance comes out because I think you access a higher power when you go confidently and boldly into what you're doing. And I think everybody experiences that in to a degree in any type of like sport or any performance activity. But it really lasted for a long time, like 10 to 15 years. So my daughter is taking lessons from one of the professors at BYU. And I recently started bringing my violin and kind of stealing some of her lesson time. And the funny thing is, I always thought I would go to BYU. That's where all of my brothers went and my mom and dad. But my my pursuit of violin just brought me on a slightly different path. And so, um, having little mini lessons with my daughter's teacher, has been so enlightening for me. I feel like I've started filling in some of the gaps and starting to like relieve some of the tension that I've been playing with for the last like decade or so. And he's taught me so many things that I feel like have just been missing from my training. And so it's just interesting to like come full circle back to where I thought I was going to be
Hmm.
and feel like it's kind of like healing my soul and helping open me up to being the player that I always felt like I was.
Wow. I love that so much, Maria. So much. And the reminder for us as women that life is long and dreams are long.
Yes.
I remember having a thought maybe a year ago as, again, I'm navigating what should each of my children be in, and they're five children, and they're really close in age. So those older three, I feel like I have to figure it out really fast because I don't have like all this big window with the oldest, and then with the second, and then with the third. And I remember thinking, okay, well, if this one really wants to do this sport she's been in, but she's not really progressing and she's not really that good, but she really likes it, like, should I still have her do it? And then it made me think about myself. Like, it's so funny. There's things since graduating high school that I haven't done in so long. And it was almost as if I thought, if I'm doing it in high school, it's so that I can do it to be really good at something. And then if I know I'm not going to be the best at something, then it's not worth pursuing anymore. But what if it just brings me joy? Can I still sign up for a lesson or do something? And then also to say, even these things that I was really good at in high school that I loved, academics and learning, which is for me a little bit of my coming full circle, which we'll talk a little bit about the school you guys started. And now working at that school, it's been so interesting. Like, I am obsessed with learning. I am a true academic at heart and never thought that would come back into my story. And so it's beautiful to think, like, women, if you had something that's a part of your story at some point, your life is going to be long. Who knows what's happening in your 50s and 60s and 70s, let alone your 30s and 40s. And how beautiful that is coming full circle. And I mean, just so you all know, listening in again, in the meantime, she's still a professional violinist and plays professional gigs. So it's not like she wasn't good enough or let it go or whatever. She's been a professional this whole time. But to still see like your heart healing in the process of that is so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been really, really sweet. Yeah, times and seasons is so true. There was a wise friend of mine that once told me when I was pregnant with our first daughter to just know that there's times and seasons, and then I'll be able to jump back into it, and that I don't have to keep everything going right now while I'm trying to be a mother. That was really helpful coming from someone that I really looked up to and admired. And I do feel really blessed that I've been able to kind of scale it up and scale it back. And that's something kind of unique to being a professional musician. Also, like when I'm trying to focus on a steady income, I generally try to build up my violin studio because it's very consistent. But when I'm interested in more like fun and the social aspect, then I'll take more recording gigs to play for like artists recording an album or a commercial or a movie. There's been so many random things I've done in those recording studios. But then I think one of the huge blessings of it is that it's like really intellectually stimulating, especially like playing with the major symphony and being able to play all of those standard works from the masters like Beethoven and Bach and Mahler. And so it has been
So
really
amazing.
fun.
It's so, I'm having a little meta moment here because we've been friends for so long. Like, it's so funny how we look at ourselves and how we look at other people's stories, because I can imagine the women listening in saying, wow, I could never be like her. Wow, I'm so intimidated by Maria. And if you showed up at Maria's house one day on her doorstep, like I did a couple days ago, her one daughter, and not like this is every day in your house, and I'm not going to try to paint some picture like, life is perfection, because I know you have trials that are hard, but her one daughter brings out baskets. She's literally woven because Maria has taught her how to basket weave. And then her other daughter has these little baby quilts, doll quilts that she made with Maria's mom. And they're selling these at the children's business fair we do at the school. And Maria is also one of the most humble people I know. Even asking her to be on the podcast, she's just like, what would I say? Why I don't have a story. And everyone listening is like, wow, who is this woman? And how did you get her on your show? And so I think when it's our own stories, there's a temptation to look at it like, who am I and what do I have to share? And I've heard so many women say that. And then I look at their story from the outside and just say, oh my goodness, how lucky are we all to hear this and learn of this? So amazing. This violin chapter is phenomenal in and of itself.
That's so interesting because one of the things that you do really well, Lizzy, is that you have a gift for vision, looking ahead and dreaming big and like intentionally creating what you want in your life. And I've learned so much from that. And I also love just like the simplicity of raising my 3 daughters and try not to look outside of that because I just want to savor those sweet moments together with them. But anyways, it's just always a balance.
So beautifully said. And the tension there in motherhood, I think, exists more exquisitely than anywhere else, where you do want to say, how can I bring my gifts to the world or do all this? And I don't want to miss a moment. Parenthood and motherhood is fleeting and magical, and you miss it if you're looking. I'm going to get super nerdy here, but I remember learning about when you look at light, it has both the properties of wave and also the properties of a particle. But once you see one, the other disappears. And I feel like I have this issue with my motherhood that just what you said. It's like, if I look too far out, I miss what's right here close. And if I get too much in the weeds and I just think my life is only about diapers and dishes, then I miss the magic of like, God has this long story for all of us, So good luck, everybody, keeping those both in both of your hands. Let's turn a little bit to the school, which I think origin story is more with you meeting Matt.
Yes, and we met through music, which was so divine and hilarious. I got asked to play a musical number with a friend. It was a violin duet, and she had asked Matt to accompany. And this was for a church event.
Where were you guys living at this time?
So we were both living in Salt Lake. Okay. It was like post-master's degrees. Just working and living the single life. I was 27 and unmarried, and I was starting to feel the pressure of like I really wanted to buy like a duplex and live in one side and rent out the other. So I was like really amped up all of my work so that I could save more and try to come up with a down payment. And so that's just like where I was in my mind. But anyways, I showed up to Matt's house and he was there playing the piano. I was late. I had just come from probably like a 10-mile trail run where there had been a significant amount of snow on the trail that I wasn't expecting. It was like early spring. And so it just took me a lot longer. And because of the snow, the sun was reflecting off of it and I got sunburnt. And so according to Matt, I like walk in with my violin. They're already rehearsing. I get it out, start playing, and he's like, who is this girl that is playing so beautifully? And then when we stopped playing, I'm like, I'm sorry, I just got back from a 10-mile trail run. And he knew that he was going to pursue me after that.
For sure. All his favorite things in one human. So special. I haven't heard that story. I love that.
It was a little more complicated than that, but
it always is.
But it was
beautiful beginning. And
it was
beautiful
so
throughout.
beautiful. It just felt so directed by heaven. Matt says he knew within 30 seconds that he wanted to marry me. And I think it took me about 2 weeks, but it just was so natural for us and how like our values and life goals aligned. Matt's mom says that she hasn't ever met another couple that has so much in common. We truly share so many loves. So it was really easy to make that decision.
So good. So you didn't date very long. I've heard this story, but it's been a long time. Refresh me.
It was a whirlwind romance. We were engaged within about 6 weeks. It kind of was like, how long should we wait if we already know we're going to get married? And then we got married later that summer. So when we started dating, Matt was working at Goldman Sachs. And so I kind of envisioned that we would be living this life where he would be in finance and I would be freelancing in Salt Lake City, or we might move to New York City to follow Goldman Sachs there, or he'd join a hedge fund somewhere like on the West Coast near our families. And a couple of months into our marriage, he got a call from Jeff Sandifer, who started Acton Academy. And he wanted Matt to come out because he was trying to find like a right-hand man to run kind of the expansion of Acton Academy.
Which is a
And
network of schools.
yeah.
You mentioned that, yeah.
And I didn't really know much about the school except that Matt's sister had moved from Hawaii all the way to Austin to raise her family there so that they could go to this school. And she was in education research. And so I knew it must be an amazing school, but I just didn't know much about that. I hadn't explored the idea of like alternatives to private school. It wasn't really on my radar, other than that I had kind of just gone through the motions in school and figured out what to do to get A's. And that the things that I became really passionate about, I did on my own, which was violin and also creative writing, like poetry and prose and literature in general. So anyways, he flies out to Austin and calls me and says, I just had this 7-hour conversation with Jeff Sandifer. We only got up once to get tacos across the street. And I knew something special had happened. There's just these serendipitous things that happen in life where you just know that heaven is kind of like aligning the stars. It definitely felt like that. And so Matt came back from Austin saying like he wanted us to move out to Austin and mentor with this one of the best business professors in the world, Jeff, and also help run this expansion of these schools. They were having thousands of applications a year to start a school like theirs, and they just had kind of grown it organically and hadn't organized like materials or a guidebook or a funnel for all the applications. And so it was a really exciting time. It was totally not on my radar that we would do this. From an outside perspective, it looked like Matt was leaving the finance world to go be a teacher at a school. And so it actually took me a couple years to fully understand what we were doing. And I mean, to be honest, it's been kind of like an ongoing, but like realization. I think it's been surprising to both Matt and I how like our path has gone. But yeah, we moved out there. He put together kind of a kit for starting a school, not knowing that someday we would use that kit to start our own school. It wasn't until we moved back to Salt Lake City to start our own school that I really truly dove in, partly just out of being self-conscious that I was going to be interacting with a lot of parents that would be interested in the school or be at the school, knowing I would need to know what we were doing. I mean, I did know what we were doing. I just wanted to be able to be more informed and more passionate. And so I actually started reading the book list that we give to incoming parents now.
Mm-hmm.
And I even started an Instagram account more as like a deliverable to keep me on track for reading all these books. And it was really a kind of transformative experience because I became so passionate about learning about this style of learning that I became converted, you could say. And it was a really big blessing because I felt like I was finally kind of 100% like committed to what we were doing and understood how it could shape our lives.
Do you have any advice for women who are in a similar situation where life is going a different direction, maybe because of their spouse's career, and how to, I mean, obviously this is one where then you've become a part of it. I think a school is kind of like starting a church. Like it's not just ever the pastor, it's his wife or her
That's
husband.
a good comparison.
But any advice there? Because I think that happens to a lot of us. Like we are both chasing dreams and then you marry someone. It's like, oh, now these are our dreams. And how do we do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, the times and seasons idea has been really helpful to me. And I think also because I knew I wanted to start a family right away, I wanted to really emphasize Matt's career. And I also knew that because he felt so good about it, I wanted to trust that and like put my trust in him and in the Lord.
I love the concept of life as well, thinking of both partners and
Yeah.
thinking of that like with you and your spouse, and also the fact that life, I like to think of life like a dress rehearsal, not like the final performance.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you can do some trial and error and you can try some things out too. Just because you make one decision and say, okay, we're going to go do this and try the school thing. I think we like to think that resumes are a perfect linear line from this obviously led to that, but I think we usually tell our stories of our career in hindsight.
Yeah.
And in the middle of it, it doesn't feel that way. It's like, whoa, all this stuff isn't related until you have enough of the picture that you can make it related
Yeah.
and to take the pressure off. It's
Yeah.
okay. We might try this and hate it.
Yeah,
It's okay.
totally.
It's fine.
Yeah. And I think also I knew that Matt was my biggest champion. It's one of the reasons I married him was because I mean, we shared the goal of raising a family, but I also knew that he wanted me to chase my dreams. And so it was okay to put those aside or not put them aside. It was okay to like take a slightly different focus in that chapter because I knew that I would be able to come back and that I would have like my biggest cheerleader at my side.
So beautiful. And it's a little counterintuitive, but I think we all know this if you've been married long enough. The more you champion your spouse's dreams, and they champion yours, like they both just work
Yeah.
somehow. But
Mm-hmm.
anytime I score keep and like, well, you didn't do this yet. And then it's like we both go down. It doesn't
Yeah.
help either of our dreams either.
Right.
So beautiful. So how long were you in Austin?
We were there for about 4 years.
Okay. And then Utah, you came back to Utah. Why?
Yeah. So we came back to Utah because our second daughter was born, Emma, and she has spina bifida. And that just kind of turned everything on its head a little bit. We had to, I mean, really, it catalyzed a lot of our plans because we had thought we would start at school in 10 or 15 years after we finished kind of what we were doing in Austin. We had actually just bought a house and we're really putting down roots. And then, yeah, we had a very like classic, I don't want to say nightmare, but like really hard 20-week ultrasound appointment. Luckily, Matt was with me and the ultrasound tech was like concerned about some things. So she went and got the doctor and the doctor showed us like the ultrasound of her head and showed us that it was more, he said, lemon shaped than like oval shaped. He said that usually causes when there's fluid leaking out of the spine. And so then there's not enough pressure like in the head to push it out to its normal shape. And so then he went down with the ultrasound and he showed us her spine and there was a big circle there on the ultrasound screen. And he said, this is called a myelin meningocele. It's the most serious type of spina bifida where the spinal cord actually comes out of the body, like basically like at a cellular level at about 2 to 4 weeks gestation. The fetus like flips over and then it zips on the other side. And one of those zippers doesn't make it. And so then as the neural tube is forming, like a little loop comes out of the body and then goes back in. And so kind of the level of mobility or function of that child usually depends on how much those nerves have been out in the elements, they say. So like even the amniotic fluid is toxic to those nerves because they're really supposed to be like inside of this neural tube with several layers of tissue, like protecting them from anything else. And while we were in Austin, we actually knew a family that had a son with the same level of myelin meningocele. It was L5S1, so right at the bottom of the back. And he was mostly paralyzed, had very limited use of his hands even. And so that was kind of the reality. I am embarrassed to say how much it shook me. I really wanted to start over. I was in total shock. I think I spent about a week in bed. Like I just couldn't get out of bed. I felt like I was grieving my life being over, which is so embarrassing to say because now that I know what I know, even if it had been worse, I know that I would have had more faith. But I had always, I mean, I think even it was it was that same summer before the ultrasound. I remember telling my sister-in-law that it would completely destroy me to find out that one of my children had a birth defect after going through such a hard pregnancy. I get really sick and I throw up for the entire pregnancy. And so it just felt like it would be devastating. And I just didn't have really the toolkit to understand how to walk forward in faith. And it's been a total journey. I feel so grateful to be able to talk about it because it has been the source of the most growth and miracles in my life.
I can't talk now. Oh, and thank you for sharing that so vulnerably and admitting that it wasn't easy. Because I think we skip over that part a lot when we tell our stories. Because you don't want to admit it was hard, whatever the challenge was, especially if it was because of someone else. You don't want to say that that was hard or a burden. But that process of going through I don't know if I can do that or I don't want that to this has been a gift in my life is maybe one of the sweetest things that God can give us in our own growth and in life experience and just in the humans that brings into our lives. And I know little Emma, and man, what a story.
Yeah, she is amazing. She is so adorable and funny and beautiful and determined. Her determination is a huge gift in her life. It's not easy for her what she does. She, just to tell everybody, she walks and runs and is just an adorable girl. She's 7 years old now.
And to an outsider, you wouldn't know her struggles.
Yeah. And, but she does, it's a lot of work. I'm super grateful to Matt, who's very involved in helping take care of her. There have been so many blessings with the school, actually, that we just would have never imagined how beautifully God has orchestrated our lives to be able to care for Emma. Sometimes I tell people that the number one reason for starting the school is just that we're on campus and can help her throughout the day. But we have witnessed so many miracles and tender mercies, and have just witnessed how much God cares about taking care of little children. It's really been so beautiful.
I've never put this together in my mind, but the reason you came to Utah was because of Emma.
Right.
And the reason the school works for Emma is because you started the school. And this mutual blessing. And I think the Lord works that way so often that he does one thing that is a gift for 50,000 people. You're
right.
I thought you were bringing us here because of her and we were starting the school because of something else. And he's like, oh, I do a lot of things at once. I don't just do one thing for one thing.
Yeah.
And that is so cool, connecting what a blessing it is for her, but what a blessing it is for me and my family because the school is here. And he answers so many people's prayers and desires.
Yeah, there's so many things to say about that. I mean, one story is just that when we had found a location for the school and we're really excited about it. And in the meantime, we had bought our current house. And then the location for that school didn't work out. And we were kind of left hanging, and school was going to start in a month. And then we miraculously were able to get the building we're currently in, which is only less than a mile from our house. And at the time, we didn't realize how that would impact our life, but it's just allowed me to go back and forth so easily to help her during the day. And it's been so huge. Another example is I feel like the Holy Ghost often whispers in advance what to expect or gives us the strength for things that are going to come. And we were at Shriners Children's Hospital doing progressive casting for Emma, and she did a gait clinic to see if she might be a candidate for this tendon transfer surgery on her legs. And we walked in, and there's like this big fish tank. It's such a beautiful atrium there when you walk into that hospital. And Emma immediately started running around with this darling girl, Lexi. And they just became immediate friends. And I started talking to Lexi's mom. And she was telling me about how Lexi had this surgery. And shortly after, I went back for Emma's appointment, and they told us that they thought this surgery would be really helpful for Emma. And Emma was able to have a play date with Lexi and see the scars on her legs and be able to kind of walk through what it was going to be like, and able to choose for herself that she wanted to have that surgery. And it was so tender for her to have that friend that had went through it also.
So beautiful. God is so good. He is so good.
Yeah. The scripture that comes to mind is it's Romans 8:28. We know that all things work together for good for those that love God. And we've really felt that in the way we've approached Emma's care with faith. I mean, I would say that our life is even better with the extra challenges because of how much it's connected us with heaven, and how much it has made us yearn for heaven and kind of glory in Christ's resurrection and look forward to his coming. It's definitely bittersweet.
Mm. You know this because we've talked about this, but I have 2 cousins with spina bifida. And I remember I have one just a little older than me and one just a little bit younger than me. And we would watch this movie growing up, and the older one was really close friends with my sister, my older sister, Jessica. And there was some movie we watched where there was this girl dancing, but she also had a disability in life, but then she could see herself dancing in the next life. And we would talk about Kristen and, do you think you're going to be a dancer? Do you think, because she's in a wheelchair? And just really beautiful believing that and knowing that and holding on to that. And shout out to that cousin. She just has created this beautiful life for herself, and she has these beautiful children and is doing such incredible things. I remember feeling the same, like heaven seemed real when we would talk about it because of that hope and what was to come. And I mean, I think that's one thing, Maria, really, that I just feel there's a few episodes that I've done recently where I just feel like I really need to be in a good sacred space you're making me cry multiple times in this episode, to just tell these stories in a way that's appropriate for like the goodness that you are and for the sacredness that you just carry with you. Even coming up to your house with the doll quilts and the baskets, it's just like, this is sacred ground.
You're forgetting about the boxes all over the lawn that looked like trash.
Nobody saw those. I didn't see those, I
everywhere.
should say. I got to see many rock collections and all the best parts of childhood. And what I hope people take away from this episode is that it's important to dream big, and it's important to do the rigor and to go after the things you want, and that the beauty is found in the present and the here and now, remembering the promises that are to come from God. And for those of you who are lucky enough to know Maria, like that's just what you embody in such a beautiful way. And maybe just a final question to close. What do you want your legacy to be? Which there's so many things that you have as your legacy, but what comes to mind for today?
I think that I want my legacy to be something around slope school, something about like empowering children to learn. I can't imagine anything more beautiful than going to like a village in Africa and having done all the work that we've done kind of in our lab school here in Provo, and understanding how to help children all over the world learn how to learn with the tools that are available to them now in this day and age. I think Matt and I believe that children are so much more capable than we give them credit. And that every child has a calling to change the world, and that we need to empower children to find those. And that's kind of our mission. And that's what I want my legacy to be.
It's so beautiful. And you're doing that, and you've changed my life through it and my family's life. Yesterday, we had an event at the school where at the end of a session, kids share what they've learned in like a real world setting. And one of our newest friends came, we call them heroes, and came up and shared how he feels being here at this school versus his last school. And his words were, "I just can't stop smiling."
Oh, that's so sweet.
So sweet. And it made me cry.
Oh,
And I talked to his mom, and just like, those were all the hopes she had, like to love learning and to feel like it's a safe environment and really want to be pushed and see the things they're capable of. And you guys have built something so incredible at Slope that I know will fulfill that.
yeah. Matt always says he wants the school to be twice as hard and 3 times as fun.
Yep. And with you two, there is no doubt that's going to happen and will keep happening and is happening. Thank you so much for being on and for all you brought and for who you are and how that's going to change the world. Send this episode to the woman you know who is quietly building something powerful and beautiful, the one who doesn't need the spotlight to know that she's doing the sacred work. And if you've been waiting for a sign to trust God with your dreams, this is it. When you partner with Him, your life doesn't get smaller. It gets wider, deeper, and more meaningful than you could ever imagine. Lean in. You're not behind. You are right on time.